In 2015, SCA struck gold with the Dodge Challenger and Charger Hellcats. The concept was simple. Basically take a very large and very powerful supercharged V8 engine and stuff it into a family sedan. Naturally, FCA extended the same courtesy to the Jeep Grand Cherokee. What we have today is the 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk, a big SUV that for some reason has 707 horsepower. So on this beautiful summer's day, we're going to find out if the Trackhawk is a legitimate competitor to SUVs like the Maserati Levante GTS, the Range Rover Sport SVR, and the BMW X5M, or if it's basically for someone who wants a Hellcat but more cargo capacity. Let's find out. What you find under the skin is familiar. You've got a supercharged 6.2 liter V8. It's good for 707 horsepower and 645 pound-feet of torque, and that's hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Understandably, you can't get this with a stick, unlike the Challenger Hellcat, which makes sense. Who wants a manual Grand Cherokee Trackhawk? I don't, because the ZF 8-speed automatic is actually really good. It shifts smooth when you're just cruising, but when you step on it, it's actually quite responsive and knocks off shifts quite well. Unlike the Challenger and Charger Hellcats, this thing is all-wheel drive. In fact, it has Jeep's quadra-track all-wheel drive system, but unlike other Grand Cherokees, where the four-wheel drive system is obviously geared more towards off-roading and nasty weather, this one's clearly geared more towards performance. Obviously, you do have goodies like launch control and FCA's performance pages doohickey that lets you basically tailor a lot of performance characteristics. So if you want heavy steering, you can do that. If you want very little stability control intervention, you can do that too. The Trackhawk does spoil you for choice. In reality, it's a bit much. Nobody needs a 707 horsepower SUV, but driving it is kind of cool. You don't really get to tap into that performance potential on public roads. At least you shouldn't. But it is really cool listening to the exhaust grumble and bark whenever you shift. And the supercharger whine is, yeah, that's the icing on the cake. Now, if you're expecting a 5,000 pound SUV to handle well, prepare to be just slightly disappointed in the sense that it is a bit cumbersome to navigate this big honking thing through tight corners and highway on-ramps, but there's actually quite a bit of grip from the all-wheel drive system and the really huge tires. The tires, by the way, are 295 section Pirellis, so yeah, you could say this thing grips. In addition to going like stink, the Trackhawk also stops like stink, if that makes any sense. You have some very large Brembo brakes at all four corners, and Brembo brakes at all four corners are very effective at hauling this 5,000 pound beast to a stop. The front discs are a little more than 15 inches in diameter, which, by the way, are larger than the wheels on my personal car. Those brakes, by the way, are also how you tell apart the Trackhawk from the regular SRT. The bumpers are the same, the wheels are the same. If you look hard enough, the only differences really are the yellow brake calipers, the big supercharged badging on the side, and the quad-tipped exhaust in the back. It's kind of a sleeper in that way, especially if you get it in the right color, which, by the way, is not green. And you probably want to know about fuel economy. I don't know how to say this. It's really bad. So far, we've been averaging about 17.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which is about in line with its official ratings from Transport Canada. But you know, this thing's going to cost you dearly, especially considering it takes premium. Yeah. The Grand Cherokee Trackhawk is actually quite nice inside. The leather is very soft, it's very smooth, feels great, very tight panel gaps, nice and tight stitching, and there's quite a bit of great tech in here too. Uconnect is one of the best infotainment systems you can get, and that is no exception here in the Trackhawk. This particular model is about $130,000 as tested. That's a lot of money when you consider you can put yourself into a legitimately nice Grand Cherokee for about $65,000 to $70,000. I mentioned big SUVs like the X5M, the Maserati Levante GTS, and the Range Rover Sport SVR, because those are arguably its top 3 competitors. And they're all around the $130,000, $150,000 range, but those 3 obviously can't come close to the Trackhawk in terms of raw power. 707 horsepower is just hard to beat. And even in terms of performance too, nothing can really touch the Trackhawk for the price, because the Levante GTS, the X5M, and the Range Rover SVR, they all do 0 to 60 in about in the high 4s, low 3s. Meanwhile, the Trackhawk does it in 3.5 seconds. The Trackhawk also has a top speed of just under 300 kilometers an hour, which admittedly is about in line with those other 3 SUVs that I mentioned. So there is some value there if all you want is the most horsepower for your dollar. But on the other hand, if you're looking at this as someone who wants a Challenger or Charger Hellcat, but you need the practicality, well, it's roomy enough in the back for your family, for your car seats, and for your cargo too. Curiously enough, this thing's actually pretty capable at towing too. It tows about 7,200 pounds. So, the $130,000 question is the Grand Cherokee Trackhawk worth it? I think it is. When you look at it from a performance perspective, it's really tough to beat in the sense that its competitors absolutely cannot touch its performance per dollar ratio. Does the Grand Cherokee Trackhawk need to exist? Probably not. And I'm glad it exists, because it shows that even if you do want something practical, something nice inside, you can still have fun. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to burn some gas. Oh, I'm gonna hate filling this up. For Driving.ca, I'm Nick Tregianis.